What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT show. Tonight, we're going to be covering the Nancy Guthrie abduction. There's a lot of new information that has come out that I think is kind of aligning with what I've been saying to a certain extent. We're going to look into some of the new recent claims, kind of tie that together with the information that is available, that has been available, and see what we can deduce and what maybe narrow down a possible, maybe not explanation, but some thoughts here. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. We have a special guest tonight, Alina from Crime Scene Collective. Welcome to the show. How's it going?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on again.
I'm doing well, Flojo, he was going to join, but he ended up having some stuff to do. He comes in with $4.99 saying, sorry, couldn't make the panel today. I owe you one. Whenever you can, my man. I know you had some things to take care of. Interesting day today with the information that has kind of broken today throughout the Nancy Guthrie abduction case. And, just kind of without getting too much into the details, are you surprised? Are you shocked? Are you in disbelief? What are your feelings?
I'm not really shocked. I'm just, some things were validated, things that I've been saying since the beginning. So I'm kind of, I'm kind of just glad that things are looked at or being seen through the eyes that I'm kind of looking at them. And a lot of the theories that I have are my personal theories. I'm not gathering them via like, because of this person saying something, this person saying something. I put my theory down the day that, a crime or a case starts, and I keep my theory, either the same, or I kind of change it based on my own assessments and what I'm experiencing during that time. And honestly, everything I've been, saying and kind of deducing from the start just seems to be now more talked about. Not everything, obviously. I don't know a lot of the stuff. I'm not associated with law enforcement. I don't have connections with FBI. So I'm just listening to now what, members of mainstream media are putting out. And I'm just like, wow, this is kind of what I've been thinking about since the start of this. And now with more information that's kind of coming out with these doors or door and all of that, and more images of, maybe like the driveway and what we can kind of pull out from that. I just think we're able to put more of these missing puzzle pieces together, just with, your and my brains, and with our thoughts, and maybe come up with more ideas. I'm not sure, or theories or something. What about you?
I wasn't surprised, because I've been kind of saying some of these things, especially like here recently with the us finding out that the back doors were propped open. You're looking at the layout from a topical view and seeing that the most logical way of getting in there without being seen and trying to get her out is probably through the back door and through the side there into the vehicle there. But we got some evidence and some stuff, and I kind of got my mind, it's got the the squirrels started moving in my head, and so things started happening, and now I got some ideas. So what I wanted to do is bring up a couple of videos that we're going to watch, and not the whole thing, but I just want to watch part of it and then kind of talk about what is being said, and then kind of get your idea about certain things. So let's break it down. Let me boost up the audio, because I know it usually is a little low. All right, without further ado, this is Brian Enton, and he's out back in Tucson, Arizona, and he's got some information for everybody. So let's listen to what he has to say.
Hey guys, today is day 59 in the search for Nancy Guthrie. It is Tuesday. This is actually Nancy's house right here behind me. This is the closest I've been able to get to the backside of the house, and I'm going to take you really up close in a second. Some interesting things that you can't see from the drone that you can only really see from back here. I also wanted to let you know about some new information that I've confirmed with a source close to the investigation, that there were no signs of an assault inside Nancy's house. No signs of an assault. The house was mostly clean, and the way it was described to me is that some rooms were actually immaculate.
All righty, so let's break that down right off the bat. No signs of an assault, but you got blood coming out of the front door.
Right.
are they saying that they can't, state that that was due to an assault?
Well, I mean, this is this is this is different for me. I mean, I'm struggling with this because saying there's no signs of an assault, but yet we do know facts here. We things that are factual are that when the sheriff department or the sheriff and the deputies arrived on February 1st, whatever they saw with what they visualized in the house, they surmised that the homicide unit needed to be called. So this is, for me, this is very tricky because on one hand, we're finding out there was no signs of an assault, but yet on the other hand, the facts are that the homicide unit was called once, the house was, looked through by law enforcement. So, then
Good point.
what brought them to that summary that unit needed to be called in?
Right. That's a good point. Just kind of deducing things in my head, maybe perhaps because they were dumbfounded by the lack of evidence that there was nothing there. And so they thought they need to bring in the big guns to try to, see something that they aren't seeing. I mean, but I would assume if they're calling in specifically homicide detectives is because they have a suspicion of that. Now, what Brian Enton is also, so there's a couple of things that he's saying here. He's saying that it was immaculate. It was extremely clean. I know the back door was open and maybe perhaps, and it was propped open. I wonder if he went back, there was a lot of time for him to go back. Maybe the whole propping situation, maybe that wasn't trying to get her out. Maybe that was him going back and propping things so that he can get, he can go in there and clean and get material, whatever he may need to get out. And I
Going
wonder
back
if,
then, though, after he's already removed Nancy
yeah, I mean,
from the house, so you think then after he removed Nancy from the house, he put her in some safe area, and then he went back to the house?
yeah, why couldn't
If
he?
911 has been called, or if they're on their way, or if somebody saw anything, or if
He was there for 40 minutes. He was there for 40 minutes. Nobody called 911. I don't think he would not have had, depending on what time it was that he left, I don't think there would be any fear of him to go back. Like there wouldn't be any reason for him, 911, he was there for 40 minutes and
Right.
911 wasn't called.
Right.
So,
Right. That displays a level of comfort and
that
security.
does.
Yeah.
But that also means that, he and I think he may have been there even longer. I know that there's been some speculation and things of that nature of when he was out there without the backpack. I have no idea. I don't know when the time is that he's walking up to that camera. You know what I'm saying? With the mask. We just know that the camera disconnects at like 1:40 something in the morning. But what we don't know is like when he arrived, how long he was outside before before the doorbell camera disconnects, because we can agree that he was there before 1:47 a.m. correct, because we see him on camera, so he had to have been there before 1:47.
Correct.
How much earlier before 1:47 is the question. How long did he spend outside? How long did he spend trying to get into the home? The next thing that we know is that software detects a person on camera, but at the press conference, and I said this way back then, that the sheriff mentioned that it may have been an animal. So I was like, that has to be an outdoor camera. So I wondered if he was still going back and forth outside, not even maybe to entry, because we don't know exactly what time he made entry into the home.
Right.
We just know that the doorbell disconnects at 1:47. There's something picked up possibly outside at 2:12. And then Nancy's pacemaker, disconnects from the phone at 2:28.
Right.
Now, I think he would have had, I mean, he's in there 40 minutes. And let's just say, Nancy's not the most, as Savannah mentioned, she's not moving. She's sustained some sort of injury at some point. Do you think he has time to clean up while he's there?
Absolutely not. I
even
really
in 40 minutes.
No, I don't. I just think that cleanup takes materials, it takes using more stuff that now you're leaving possibly your DNA on more items and dropping stuff. And, I just think that adds so much more to this, to that activity that they were trying to succeed in that evening. And that just makes it even more messier. And if they did, or he did, or they did, that would, for me, show the level of professionalism, or how strategic
Pre-planning.
you were, or planning. Yeah, and again, I think this is very generational. And to me, if they did spend the time cleaning, again, that would show immaturity. Like, I'm gonna clean that up. I got this. Where she keep her Windex? I'm gonna spit on it and clean it up. Like, why? You don't plan on stuff like that if you have a goal in mind. That's what you have team C for, like they come in and clean that stuff up if that's how intricate this crime is. That's why there is no perfect crime. That's why there's always mistakes made. If they're literally, doing step by step, to where if they see one little, mistake, and they know to stop and clean that up, and they know that they have the time, and the clock is not running out, then this is a lot broader than I think anybody realizes. Then they knew that even 40 minutes, they had 45 or 50 or an hour, because how did they know how long it was going to take for them to clean that one little stain, or how many stains there were?
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, he did have a lot of time. I mean, 911 was, 911 wasn't alerted until noon. And if he had a scanner on him, if that's what is in his pocket, then that would make him even more comfortable to know whether or not 911 was called, or any of those things. And so,
Like a police scanner?
correct. If that was what is in his pocket, is a police walkie or a police scanner, or something that had the capability of listening to police dispatch, then maybe perhaps, I mean, Brian Koberger did that. He had Broadcastify downloaded on his phone. Uh, if he had something of that, and he had that technology or that capability, then that would make him even more comfortable going back and forth. Now, do you think that this was the night of the abduction?
Well, so, okay.
Well, hold on. Before we get it, I have a point. So I want to know, do you think it's the night of the abduction? And then I want to go into,
No, I don't think it's the night of the
okay.
abduction.
Do you think he's wearing the exact same clothing? Because I mean, I think it's the exact same
I do think
mask, sweater.
I do.
Okay, so I don't believe they have DNA in this, that they are 100% certain that belongs to the suspect. I've been saying that for a minute. The fact that they said that this could take years to solve tells me they don't have a DNA on a knife sheath, so to speak, like in the Brian Koberger case. If this guy was there multiple times wearing the same clothes, he had to have gone home. He had to have gotten in his vehicle. He had to have done a lot of things. And to wear the same clothes is increasing the amount of the possibility that he's going to track something into that house. The
Right.
fact that they don't have his DNA or something that can track back, or they have something, connecting there, tells me he cleaned up the scene.
Right, but we don't know 1000% for a fact.
Oh, we don't need to know for a fact. It's kind of like, when I would talk about the Brian Koberger case, and I said, hey, if I walk outside and I see dark clouds in the distance and I see water everywhere, I don't need to see that it rained to know that it rained. And in this scenario here, for it to be immaculate the way they said, and for them to not have DNA, he and if he's wearing the same clothes that he must have gotten into his vehicle, clothes that he had to put on 2 different days. I don't know how long he was out there in this gear, but Arizona's not the coolest of, I mean, maybe at night it's kind of cool, but even wearing those latex gloves and things of that nature, you're going to sweat. And around that cuff, of that sweater, if he's wearing this 2 nights in a row, or multiple times, or once a week, and then another time a week, or 3 weeks later, and for multiple hours or minutes at a time, how in the heck does he not sweat on that? How is there not DNA all over the place? And so for it to be immaculate, I strongly suspect that this guy cleaned up the scene, and he doesn't have to do much. I don't think he. I don't think. I think maybe perhaps part of the 40 minutes was him trying to get also Nancy outside. But I also wonder if he went back or if once secured in the car, I don't think he had any concern, if especially if he had the ability to lock her in the car, that she was going to be able to kick the window out or make enough noise to get out. You know,
Right.
and so I think he would have felt comfortable enough to even go in at that point to make sure, even if he's going around spraying bleach everywhere or Lysol just to spray everywhere,
Right.
just to kind of destroy any DNA that there might be. I think there's a good possibility of that.
I understand what you're saying, but then what I'd like to say to that is a lot of times, when anybody says things like this that are, an afterthought or that kind of don't match up to things that we already know or things that we've already heard, for me, I kind of think of it as this might mean something more, or we have to read between the lines on this, right? What does this mean? Maybe they're just giving us little nuggets or dropping cheese for us, And for me, I'm looking at this statement as several different things, but one of the things I'm looking at it as, could this be kind of being told to us as, because it's saying most rooms looked immaculate. It's not saying all the rooms, it's saying most rooms. So could this be kind of dropping us a little, nugget saying this person had a direct path from the door directly to Miss Nancy's room, and they had the target. They omitted, they weren't looking for her. They didn't stop in the kitchen. They didn't make a ham sandwich. They didn't get a glass. They didn't go to the bathroom. They didn't go here. They didn't go here. They went in the door and directly to Miss Nancy's room and then directly out the door, indicating nothing was touched on the way in or on the way out. They went in, did what they needed to do, and went out.
But we have blood, and we also have the fact that she was immobile. She was not very mobile, and so I wouldn't be surprised. And we also have the thought, if the back door was left open and that was the initial plan for them to get out, then the guy didn't look very, very large. Maybe he struggled carrying her out or getting her out of the house. And that could have been one of the reasons why he decided to change of plans and go out the front door. Regardless, something happened that made him go out the front door. There's no sign of it. You would assume that if he's carrying her down a hallway or something and he's going to hit things, he's going to do something. Now, you go back in there, you have your path that you walked, you can pick up things, spray things down. It wouldn't take very long to just kind of move things around. And if you had like a bleach spray to just kind of go over everything, especially if you have no fear that anybody's calling 911 or anything.
Yeah, if that's what his mindset was, but also, I mean, a fact here is that when investigators were in the house, the house was wrapped up and returned within 30 to 36 hours, right? So even if there was, evidence of a cleanup, were they in there long enough to even spot that? Right? We don't know. Honestly, we don't.
Well, you see, I think this is where I think sometimes you get a little bit narrow-minded, you get narrow-focused. These guys were probably focusing in on like Tommaso or something like that, and not really thinking about what you had. What you had there, and the reason why they released the scene was they didn't have anything. No DNA came up anywhere. Nothing. Everything was clean. You don't release it if you start finding things. And so they didn't, they didn't have anything. And this is something that I found today. I think News Nation or whoever it is, Jesse Weber, aired it out today, but I think this is an older, something from like a couple of days ago. But listen to this.
There is a stunning claim that could change everything in the Nancy Guthrie case. A former SWAT team leader now says, despite months of investigation, that the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Office have no suspects. Chad Ayers says this is from a source who is, quote,
so they have no suspects, no leads, no nothing. And I've been saying that, especially, and so this was back in day 46, especially when I said this when they went back and they started looking at construction workers, they started looking at a bunch of other stuff. And what I said was, if we're going to, we really need to start to think that whatever it is that they were looking at before they struck out, it struck out. And so if we look back at what they were looking at that point and harp and stay on those thoughts and theories of the beginning, we're going to be going down a very wrong path. Because at this point, it seems like they struck out on everything, absolutely everything.
I agree. I think they rushed through it, and yeah, I mean, I don't know where you want to talk about from here, but I just found out today about a pilot that should have been on the search in day one, but he was arguing, or he was on disciplinary leave with the sheriff because there was a misunderstanding. They were arguing, and he was on disciplinary leave for 3 to 4 hours during the most critical time of the search. And therefore they deployed a helicopter versus the search airplane that they have for cases specifically like this.
Yeah.
And that, again, to me, is lost time. 3 to 4 hours. That's a lot of time that they lost on because of a semantics, because of a personal argument, or not. I don't know if it was personal, but a department argument. Like, time to put that stuff aside. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, to me, it just all this just kind of, like I said, I think if we take it and then we look at it, we slow down and we take a look at the evidence, take 100 feet back, look at it from 100 feet view and start putting everything together. Yeah, definitely there was a lot of mistakes made by law enforcement in this case.
Right.
But I think also there's some pretty obvious tales here from the perpetrator and the abductor, that if we get in the right path and we all start focusing on the right direction, instead of the blame game or holding on to some old theories, then I mean, maybe perhaps if everybody focuses, and maybe we can actually help. But we'll see. Let's continue this.
Okay.
But the headline is that there were no signs of an assault inside. Remember, obviously there was blood that was seen on the front sort of steps area, front area right in front of her front door. That's where we saw.
That definitely, from this angle, looks way more like a footprint. But it's a weird footprint because it's facing.
It's like they're backing out. It's like they're backing out.
Well, or next to what I would assume was her, but yeah, it's weird.
To me, it looks like if it's a footprint, if we were to agree it's a footprint, to me it looks like a footprint, like somebody's walking backwards.
Yeah, definitely could be.
The blood, and there's been a lot of questions about, well, what did it look like inside? And apparently it didn't look like much at all. It looked relatively normal. No signs of an assault, which would explain when Savannah did her interview why she was saying that when Annie, her sister, and her brother-in-law Tommaso first showed up here to the house, they didn't understand what was going on. The back doors were propped open, but they initially thought that perhaps there was some kind of medical episode, that an ambulance had come, and maybe they took Nancy out the back. But this would all kind of line up with what Savannah said, this reporting that I have now, that there were no signs of an assault inside the house. I'm going to flip my camera around now because I want to show you what it's like kind of up closer to the backyard. All right, I'm going to walk up closer here. And yes.
And I got some things. There's some things that were interesting about the area that I noticed. But, back to what he was saying, that there was no sign of an assault, and kind of going real quick, if there was multiple people involved, do you think it would have been easier to get her out of the back door?
That's a good question.
Stick to the plan. If there was multiple people and there was somebody else assisting and they had doors propped, I don't think it would be too dull of a task, especially, let's just say they did get in the house immediately after the doorbell disconnects. That's not a task that takes 40 minutes for two people. Yeah,
that's a good question. That for that reason, I do think it would be one person because they just didn't have time and they're like, oh crap, now we got to go, I got to go this way. It doesn't work that way for me. It's too much. It's too heavy, or it's become too much of a job for myself.
And if there was two people involved, do you think that the other person would have been like, yeah, go get seen on the front camera there? Because apparently if the whole point was to go through the side, there was no point in going to the front door or that front camera, right? And so if that was just to, for whatever reason, just because he wanted to be seen, he wanted to be, he wanted his face out there, whatever the case, or somewhat of his face out there, whatever the case may be, do you think that a second person, knowing that the plan was to go through the back, would have been like, yeah, go through the front where there's a camera?
Well, it's hard for me to say because the front camera is the one we actually have a video from. So knowing that the other cameras were, because they were manipulated, right? I just want to.
I assume so. That's what I've.
And I did the picture of the floodlights in the back and what they look like against Nancy's home and how they were busted out. Did you see that picture?
I have not.
Okay, so if you want to look for it while I'm explaining this to you, if you go on Ashley Banfield's podcast from last night, it's around, hold on, I'll tell you exactly where it is.
I have that podcast from last night up already. If you just need to give me the
I'm gonna hold on. I wrote down, I think, where the floodlights are, and I'm thinking it's like 45 minutes in. I typically write it down because I plan on making my own pictures, but I never have time. But it's towards the end. But okay, 13 minutes. So it's either 13 minutes in or there's 13 minutes left. I think it's 13 minutes left in the video. So I think
it's about an hour long. So 13 minutes would be about 47.
Yeah.
I'm around that part. I just see somebody else talking now. In
all right, well, let me explain it. So
first few minutes, there's where she's talking about the where the door was propped open, where you can still see the door propped open here.
Yeah, you can. But what I want to just quickly say about the floodlights is, so just with this picture you're showing here, you can see the blue door, right? And then you can see the brick right above it, right? Yeah. So with the floodlights, let's just say they were right above that brick and they were kind of attached right there. So in the picture with them smashed, it literally broke the brick. And to break the brick, to me, shows, I feel that they used a hammer or something very strong and they missed during one of their first hits. It wasn't that one, they were white. And they missed because they hit the brick and they broke the brick that the light is attached to, or they were hitting it down, but the brick is indented. It's not outward, like as if they were pulling the lights down. It's indented, so they're smashing it inward. Does that make sense? Like a hammer. And to me, again, like if we were to take a hammer and hit brick, my house is made out of brick, it would be very loud. It's not a quiet noise. And you could see in the picture, there's definitely more than one hit. If I were to say there's 3 hits, I can't say for sure. But if I were to say there's 2 hits, I can pretty much say that for sure because you can see it in that picture. Like if I were to tell you, like I would say minute 40 and on her video, minute 40.
A minute and 40 in the video?
No, minute 40. Like it's on it when it says 40 minutes to look right around there. 39.
And it's in this video?
Yeah.
And it was when?
I would say around, keep going, like minute 40. And she's talking about the house.
You're going to see the ingredient list is a mile long. Seed oils, artificial flavors,
being a pilot is completely different than being.
That's the pilot.
This type of thing.
All right, so let's now go back to minute 13. Go all the way back to minute 13.
They are the experts between search and rescue and the
you if that inner door also had a flower pot. It is possible that door.
So this
just
is where
stays
she's
open,
saying that there
right?
was a
Because it's a
flower
heavy.
pot that was utilized.
Yeah.
So, what does that tell you?
That tells me that this person was looking around and thinking, what can I use that is strong enough to hold this door open? And to be completely honest, that could have been a trial and error, because you see that turquoise flower pot on the ground and all the other stuff up on that table. What if one thing wasn't heavy enough and they had to use something else? That means, again, DNA, touching stuff, moving stuff. Why isn't all this stuff collected? Why isn't all this stuff taken in and just kind of set in the evidence room just in case? But because like I'll use things to hold my door open, and sometimes I do it really quick and I'm like, oh crap, that just slammed the door right on me because it wasn't heavy enough. How did this person know whatever they used was heavy enough to hold that door? It's
Well,
just,
so here's a couple of things that this all tells me. That one, this probably wasn't part of the plan to prop the doors. And if this wasn't part of the plan, and if the plan was to have her exit the house and go across and into the driveway, let me pull up my pictures real quick. If the plan was to come out of here and this way and get into a vehicle that's obstructed by view and they can take their time, etc. And Flojo asks, what's the layout of the house? Here it is. This is that area of the den. This is that storage outside. Here's the right here. Number 3 is the door. Number 1 is another door. Number 2 is another door. So those are the 3 doors that are outside. Her bedroom's out here. And so if he's thinking that the best plan is to have her walk across, walk outside in this direction, and initially, just have her walk out there, and then he has to change plans and prop things. This tells me he wasn't that familiar with her situation, her medical situation. And then go back to who is the effects, where, I strongly suspect that this guy, he is probably more like this was fantasy driven. I've been saying that since the beginning, and that maybe he had some sort of affection towards Savannah, or some sort of revenge or hatred, or some sort of fantasy, something to that nature that had to do with Savannah. And he played it out on her mom. And this right here kind of, not necessarily a proof or evidence of that, but this is somebody who's, in my opinion, not as familiar as, for instance, somebody who took care of her for a while, or a family member. I think they would have known that it would have been difficult to get her out of that door all the way across the house, etc. And I don't think that would have been part of the game plan. And then again, the whole doors being propped, that tells me that was a one-person deal. That was one person. He was probably trying to carry her out, and he thought that he would prop the doors open and do so that way he'd can get her out. And that tells me, again, having to utilize stuff that's there at the house, this wasn't planned. This was, if it was, then I think we would have probably taken some stuff with him to prop open the door, to make sure that he had something to prop the door open. You don't risk not having tools and just saying, all right, well, I'll find something there. I don't know. What do you think?
well, the other thing, so when you have this picture up, can you show where the garage is?
Garage is up here.
If you heard that, so how they're saying that, in the Savannah interview, she said there was doors, multiple propped open, right?
Right.
But initially when this information came out, and I did not hear this, so I missed all of it. Apparently in the first week, it did come out that a door, singular, was propped open. And it is just now coming out that it's plural doors. And from the podcast that I listened to earlier today, it is being said that the other door, the second door, or why it's plural, is the gate next to the garage. That's the second door that was propped open with, and it wasn't said with a flower pot or anything. It just said that's the second door that was propped open. I think you have a video of how it looks. And it's that, and this goes to your theory that we spoke about the other night with, they used the garage gate initially.
Yeah, I think that was the plan.
there.
This
Yeah.
gate here.
That's the other gate that's why they're saying plural. And this is just what I've heard today, that's the second door. That the first door, the one that we see where the flower pot is, that door, I guess there's two doors that go right into the kitchen. And that's why it looks, they're all the same, or they all go to the same spot. And that's where I guess some confusion is. The second door that is being set as propped is that gate door right there to walk into the backyard. So that follows your theory of somebody parking right in the side driveway to the, if you're facing the house, so to the right by the
Mhm.
garage, and then using that side gate as their, to go and enter. And that was propped open. The back door was propped open to go inside the kitchen. And then whatever happened, which this is where, I really think original plan was to go in that way and go out that way. But then upon, trying to remove Miss Nancy, this is where the whole pacemaker and heart rate jumped, and pacemaker had to jump in. And unfortunately, perhaps this might be when she, expired. And this is when plans had to change very quickly. And they were like, oh crap. And this might have added that time at, becoming 40 minutes. And they were like, I need to get out of here, and went front door. I don't know.
I think that's a very good possibility. I mean, I think something did happen. Heather says he could have also had a thing for elderly women. It's sick, but it happens. It's true. The only thing is, I think if Nancy was the sole objection of this man's fantasy, and it was that, I think he may have thought that he may have had trouble getting her out. I mean, I would have assumed that he would have done more,
Yeah.
Canvassing and stuff like that. This seems like there was a lot of planning, obviously, but not necessarily. I don't know if this guy was very familiar with what Nancy could and could not do, or the extent of her medical situation at that time. But you bring up an excellent point. So something happened in the house, and it caused them to decide to go outside, and yet there's no evidence of what that was. It's dark. He's wearing a mask. He's got multiple layers of clothing on, multiple gloves on. I can't imagine that that's going to be easy to move around in, and especially trying to get her outside. He don't bump into things. Nothing breaks. Nothing falls.
That
what I'm saying?
that we know of. And that's
I get that, but according to Enton, if what Enton is saying is true,
but then what I mean? Pull up the picture of the blueprints, right? And if what I kind of thought is, if he's just kind of giving us a little nugget here and saying they had a plan. They went, they went in the house and they went right to her room, obscuring all the other rooms in the house. Then that works with where her room is and the door is. They went right in through the back door and went right to her room, omitting every other room and area in the house. Therefore, no other room was disturbed or touched.
Yeah, and you made a point earlier that some rooms were cleaned and immaculate, and some didn't appear like they were touched. So I wonder if it's the area leading just kind of. So again, if other places didn't look cleaned up or immaculate, then that should be also kind of a clue that this guy went in there and cleaned up after himself. He wouldn't be cleaning up, Nancy's third bedroom that he never went in. He wouldn't be cleaning up the family room or the dining room or any of those things. He'd be cleaning up the path that he took. And if there are some areas that appear immaculate and others don't appear like anybody like just normal living, that right, to me seems also like a sign of a cleanup.
Maybe. I mean, honestly, it's hard for me to say, because he said some, he didn't say all. And that's where I think he's just kind of telling us to read between the lines. Like I heard, I've heard all along that there were things knocked over. I did hear two different versions of the story. And that's why it's hard for me to, just hone in on one, on what is the fact here. Cause I heard there was like a vase knocked over, and then I heard there was a lamp near the front door knocked over.
Mhm.
And so I tried to do some research, and so AI says, this is what AI says: through the side windows adjacent to the door, the following items are visible. Left side window, a brick wall section, a dark object or plant in what appears to be a large light colored pot or planter on the floor. Doesn't mean it's knocked over. It's just saying that maybe they had a large plant, that was right there. Another gray, potentially concrete cylindrical object also on the floor. Right side window, a brick wall object. An indoor lamp with a light colored shade is visible on the surface inside the house. While there isn't a single widely circulated official investigative photo showing the sliding door precisely as it was found. Oh, this is something different, but never mind. But basically saying nobody can now, or the internets cannot give a report that it was ever said that something was knocked over. And that's always kind of weird to me, how we hear something, I know I saw it, like it's literally talked about in my group as of yesterday. But when you look for information, for factual information online, we can't find anything.
Yeah.
It's all changed.
Yeah. And I wonder, and this kind of goes back to, when I told you guys, I didn't think they had a vehicle. I don't think there's a lot of things too. And back to them not having a suspect and a little DNA information. I strongly suspect this guy may have definitely cleaned up. This is the inside of the house. I believe this is
That's it.
That's the door.
Yes.
That was propped open. So do you think it's possible when they said doors propped, this door opens inward, the other door opens outward, it's a screen door? Could it also have been the two doors that make this exit? The interior and exterior door?
I mean, it could be possible. I honestly, I don't know. I'm just going by what I heard on Banfield today. And she said from her sources, the second door, why it was said plural, is because the second one was the gate from the driveway going into the side of the house into the backyard for them to enter, or, for that first propping door off the kitchen to work, there has to be a path.
Yeah.
So it was like they had both doors propped so they can exit very quickly. And then she also mentioned how the Golden State Killer had a habit of doing the exact same thing.
Of what?
Propping doors and windows open ahead of time, so he would have an easy entrance and exit when he was committing his crimes.
Yeah, I believe Brian Cover would do the same, leaving the back sliding glass door open.
Yeah,
the entire time. Let's see, because we know that because there was no blood evidence on the door on the inside. So had he closed it, he would have had to have opened it with his hands and everything all bloody. And so that wasn't prevalent, and there was blood evidence on the door frame and stuff of Xana's bedroom. He left it open the entire time.
right.
He says, any other camera footage out there? Annie's house, rideshare that she took, probably, but law enforcement probably has it. There's probably a lot of footage that we're not aware of, including more of the suspect. I think we got like a very small fragment of the footage that they have of the suspect walking around. I think that's of him walking up to the house. Who knows how long it was between the time that he's approached on camera to the time where the camera disconnects. That's what I want to know. Those are the questions I want answers to, because that would.
And I also want to know why that information has changed so much. Like, why in the beginning they said it's impossible to retrieve this information. And then, they said the technology, they really helped us out. They came through for us. And now we have a whole video. And then we can't get another video, but we can get a still image. All right. That's what they were additionally able to retrieve for us. And then what was it, 2 weeks later, or actually no, because that was February 10th. And then when we got that still image was, I think March 21st or around there, 22nd, that we got the still image. And then it was, and I'm just pulling this off the top of my head, I think it was am I saying March? I think February 20th that we got the other images. And then it was about 2 weeks after that that they said, or 3 weeks that they said, they're now getting thumbnails of imagery from the back of the house. Am I remembering this correctly or not?
They did. And unfortunately, there was nothing during that time.
That they're sharing with us. I mean, I really think
No,
that
they said that that they could see the investigators and they could see people, or, I guess, activity before, and they could see activity after, but there was nothing in the middle. And
yeah,
that's one of the reasons why I believe that they had a jammer. That's one of the reasons why I was pointing out that I think that maybe perhaps he had a jammer because of that. And I said it in the beginning, I was like, hey, I don't think they have as much evidence as as most people think, and that's why they're not releasing a lot of information. I said this from the very beginning. I said this might be a very clean scene, that because one of the reasons they're not giving out a lot of information at this point, given the fact that it's been so long, they still don't have a suspect. At this point, you would have expected, if they had a vehicle on camera, that they would have come up with a year, make, and model, and alerted the public about it. Hey, we're looking for X, even if it was like a stock photo like they did in the Ryan Koberger case,
right.
that would have happened. That's not happening in this case.
Right.
I've continually said I don't think they have as much evidence that a lot of people are thinking. I think that they're lacking quite a bit, and the more that comes out, the more that I think that this guy cleaned up after himself. And I strongly suspect that there's very little evidence in this case. That's why they're saying that this is going to take years.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I think it's also going to take years because of the DNA, and that they're having a hard time with the IgG and really figuring out who that person's connected to, because there just isn't enough people to connect it to just yet. And what they're hoping to with saying it's going to take, several months, if not years, is that within those months and years that somebody will submit some DNA or with one of those profile things online, or maybe hopefully not commit a crime or something, and they'll get a hit that way. And just, there's always information coming in, and over time, maybe that's how it'll cycle through.
Yeah, it's possible. I hope so. I hope they catch this guy, but at this point, I don't have the most confidence in what law enforcement have done and have shown that we're going to get an answer anytime soon. And it's horrible, but let's continue with what Brian Enton wants to show us.
Okay.
As I have permission to be back here, just so you guys know, I've kind of gotten to know a lot of the neighbors. So, and I'm not going to go. You see, there's these private property signs. So I'm obviously not going to cross onto Nancy's property, and I want to be respectful in that way. But this is, again, it's just kind of surreal to be back here, because this is the closest that, I mean, I've only seen it from the drone video, but this is the closest I've been able to.
So one of the things that I had wondered when it came to that one photo that I had shown, and I know I asked you, I was like, do you think that this is, a different night? I'm still kind of thinking it might be a part of the same night. Maybe perhaps it was before midnight. We don't know. We only know that it was at 1:47 that the thing cut off. I doubt he was there for 2 hours, hanging around outside. But, if this is the same night, why maybe perhaps he doesn't have the gun in the backpack? I thought that maybe perhaps he had to jump the fence, and you're going to want to remove both of those things, and at least from there, who knows if he look at the way he's standing, his right hip is kind of pushed back a little bit. So if he moved the gun to the front of his, his crotch area to the side, so that he could jump a fence, and based on the position that he's standing there, we may not be able to see it.
I just thought of something. What if, and this could be totally out there, what if he was already in the house, and that's why that backpack, and this could be just really, theatrical. And he went to the front door to prepare this door, just like he prepared the other ones, because at this point, things already went south inside the house. So
he had around the outside though.
I don't don't know.
You know, this image here appears that he's approaching from like
Maybe to make it still appear that this is the robbery or something, you know, I don't know. Like, I don't know, but just let's pretend that that's not part of this. But like maybe he went around the front and, you know, to see what it looks like up there. And he's like, oh shit, there's a camera up there. And then he goes back and he has to pack all this stuff back up. And he put the gun up there because it was really quick and maybe it belongs on the side, but he's just packing up as fast as he can. And then he has to get everything ready to bring her out that front door because now he realizes something went bad inside the house. And this is just him preparing. And that's why it looks like he's all just kind of, oh crap, I don't know. And this is just based on if he's there that same night because he's looking around, he's assessing, he's trying to figure out what's in front of him here. And then when he comes back, to me, it looks like he was already there and he just forgets where things are because he means to look to one way. And then he's like, oh crap, that's this way. You know what I mean?
No. I mean, he's got to go pretty far out there. I don't know. I mean, if it's not the same night, that to me is more evidence that this guy cleaned up because if he's wearing the same clothes multiple nights, he's got to get there a couple of times. That clothes is going back with him home. You know, it's sitting in the same car that he sat in earlier. And since then, you know, that he's wore his regular clothes in that is extracting fibers and things from inside of his house.
Yeah.
I do not think that, I mean, I do think that if this was a different night and this was just maybe a practice run, you know, just to kind of scope out the area, you know, but he doesn't want to get seen. You know, he doesn't want his DNA left behind. And if he touches anything, he doesn't want law enforcement to find this and go back and, you know, and realize he was there some other time and still get his fingerprints or something. Maybe, but if he did this, then I think there's little doubt in my mind that he didn't clean up the scene either while he was there or the possibility that he went back.
Right. So information that I found out today, because I've always been adamant that my source, and now it's like, oh crap, I'm going to walk it back, told me that that image is from the night before. And I was like, it makes sense. And then, you know, we would talk about it and you'd tell me, look at the lights from behind and look at this, you know, we would go back and forth on it. And I was like, I don't know. I'm pretty, you know, confident in my source and this and that. Right. Today, I find out that, Mike Ruiz from Fox Digital, like he, you know, stands down on this, that he has sources and all that image is from January 11th. And that really messes things up in my mind because the other thing we do know factually about January 11th is the neighbor, that's the neighbor that Brian Enton interviewed several times. She is the woman that was getting ready in her bathroom in the morning of January 11th and saw a gentleman walking by very suspiciously with, you know, kind of saying typical or not typical attire for a walker, had a hat on, didn't have typical walking shoes or walking pants or anything. And they looked out of place and they were walking around, and to them, it looked like, or to this woman, it looked like they were scoping, you know, the area out. So if that's true, would this person come back that same night and in front of a camera the same night? Do you really think that? For me, I do not. But
well, he took the camera off.
But this is the day that they're there with no backpack.
Oh yeah.
So they would be walking around the neighborhood, daytime, morning time, so everybody can see them. I mean, there's so many walkers there. There's so many regular daytime people that just enjoy the benefits of this neighborhood. I know what it's like. Like, this is factual. And this person took the chance to be seen there during the day and then came back the same day that night. To me, that just does not add up to commit a crime such as this. And if it's true, and for it not to be a young person, again, generational, and not just slop, like it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work.
You know what I think it is? I think some people might be spreading some false information solely because they got a lack of information. And I've said this, when you have a lack of information and you're afraid, especially in a high profile case, of somebody coming in and just admitting to the crime just to admit to it. Somebody could come in and say, yeah, what do you know else about the crime? I know that I was there also on the 11th. There's video of me. And so maybe if it didn't happen that day, I wouldn't be surprised if law enforcement's like, all right, we need to start spreading this, that it wasn't the same day. So that way, if somebody comes in and we ask him, hey, did you come on a different day, or what other day was this on? And if they say it was some other day, we know it's not really the guy. You get what I'm saying? And one of the things that might make me believe that that's a possibility is, and I've said, is like, if you have a little bit of evidence and a little bit of information, and what it sounds like is they got a little bit of information and a little bit of evidence, you have to keep certain things very close to the vest that only the perpetrator may know. And at this point, if they don't have DNA anywhere, or they don't have anything that wasn't knocked over or anything like that, everything was immaculate and in place. What is it that they're going to ask that guy? Hey, what can you tell us that only the perpetrator would know, outside of, hey, when did you go to the house on this image? When was this?
Yeah.
And you could probably try to tell somebody, we know it wasn't that night. And they
Right.
may know it is that night, just to see what the perpetrator is going to say, so that way they can rule them in or out as a false confession, things of that nature. So I wonder if that's what we're getting, and that's why sources are saying different days.
Yeah. I mean, very much it could be, and it could be very well planned out and played out, and all of that. It's just, for me, I just feel like it's not fair for, the public that is really trying to help and piece this together and look at the knowledge that they have and trying to remember things that they've seen or heard, or look back on their own information. And then they're being fed all different information, or, facts, or, types of facts at this point. And now it's just confusing everybody. It really is. And it just puts people at a different starting point over and over again. And I just think that it'll make a
Well,
lot
I'll tell you what it is. It's a sign of a weak case. It's a sign of a weak case. And to be honest with you, I've not seen anything that would give me confidence and to believe otherwise in anything, that this isn't a weak case to this point. I mean, it don't sound like they have anything. They don't have a vehicle. They don't have anything. Everybody that they looked into, probably due to phone activity during certain days or times,
Yeah.
or whatever, didn't pan out. And so they've had to start all over. And I think they put themselves behind the 8 ball on certain things. And this is a completely weak case, in my opinion. And here's the other thing. And this is my evidence, my proof also, more so, that this is probably, a situation where, the guy was trying to get into the house and was walking back and forth and didn't know how to get in.
Mhm.
I think I found the camera. You see this right here, where I'm circling right above this green bush,
Mhm.
this big bush right above it. There's this, what looks like a solar panel facing out, and then there's a white object next to it. That looks like a camera.
Mhm.
And if that's the one that was destroyed, one of the things that I have been saying from the get-go was, when I looked at this image, I thought that this guy was walking from this side of the house, from the right side, from the perspective of the camera, which would have been from this side of the house, coming from this side of where the camera is. And I wondered, I was like, hey, I think maybe perhaps initially he walks up, he does his thing, he tries to cover the camera, then he's like, whatever, forgets about it and leaves. Probably goes to the right. And the reason why he goes to the right is he wants people to think, or law enforcement, not to, it's misdirection. There's a lot of misdirection here. The way he walks up, to me, feels very misdirection. And so
Right.
him walking to the right, him coming back from the right, even though the exit and the doors are to the left, that's another thing to stage and to misdirect. And I thought that he was coming from that side, and I felt that this was the moment that the light, or that the camera captured the motion, and that's why it looked dark. It wasn't necessarily a situation where it was actually that dark. I just think that this image here was when the motion captured him, and it started. And when a camera starts up, it's going to get dark, it's going to get bright, and then it's going to
Right.
focus.
Yeah.
And I thought that if he was coming from the right, that the reason why the camera didn't detect his motion until this point was because of the plants right here on the right side of the building.
Mhm.
And so these plants on the building, if this is the moment when the flash is initiated, then he's probably coming. And I mean, based on the way he looks too, it looks like he's coming from the right side. And so I wonder if he came around, try to look around. This is when he destroys the camera, removes it, then goes back, and then maybe perhaps is still in this area doing something, because the camera, what was it? The camera was disconnected. I think it's the right one. I mean, almost 20 minutes after. I mean, a good amount of time after the doorbell camera disconnects.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe he's going at this. He's trying to still find an entry point. And
Or
I
maybe
don't
he's
know. I
camera
thought the back door was always the
eyes.
thought there.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think that, all right, here we go. All right, that's what I was looking for right there.
The timeline.
Disconnects, software detects person on camera, pacemaker. Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, and either he was looking for other cameras or he already knew he got them all. But to me, it doesn't seem like there was a 3-week gap in those videos at all, like at all. It just seems like it was very back to back.
I would agree.
Because you in a crime like that, you can't buy time. You don't know what somebody's going to do unless you're watching that person very diligently to know that while I'm smashing that camera in the back of the house in those 3 weeks, while they have lawn care, while they have a pool guy, while they have somebody, cleaning up the leaves or whatever, they're not going to be like, oh, look, there's a camera broken, let's replace it. I mean,
That's interesting. That's a great point.
That's 3 weeks. And we know that just during the time I was there was a sprinkler that was just, spraying crazily. And they had somebody there 2 days in a row fixing one sprinkler because that's the service she has.
What if, all right. So let's just say he initially made entry. Now, I think I heard a report that supposedly Nancy maybe not locked her back door. Right.
Yes.
And so if that was the case, right, then it wouldn't have taken very long for him to just check the doorknobs and then to get in.
Right.
But what if so we know that the pacemaker disconnects from the iPhone at 2:28. That's when he's leaving the scene. That's possibly not the time that Nancy's securing the vehicle. So hear me out. What if he makes entry, he goes in, because you're right, he can't go around and smash things around and go do things. He could be heard, 911 could be called. So he goes and makes entry first, takes her out. Now, if he doesn't leave the property with her and she's still close enough, even if she's in the car, she still could be connected. And then after he secured her in the vehicle, has her restrained, she doesn't have a phone, doesn't have any fear of her, waking somebody up or whatever. Maybe he did strike her and that's why there's blood, to ensure that she's not yelling or whatever the case may be. And then between 212 and 228 is when he's back in the house cleaning up, smashing the cameras and doing all those things that he couldn't have done because he could have woken her up or woken somebody up that's close. I mean, inside the house.
That's a great point. You saying the fact that hurting her on the way out because she was making noise, as you were saying that, I was like, holy cow, what if that's exactly what happened? What if inside the house she was being vocal, and once they reached that, threshold, he was like, she's being too loud. Like this is going to cause alarm. I've got to, make that not happen anymore. So I'm going to do something for that noise not to happen. And that's why the blood is
at the door,
evidence of like a cough or something, because it's shows us that it was from the nose or mouth. It's not an arm's not going to cough, armpit's not going to cough, the stomach's not going to cough, but a nose or mouth. So for me, it's kind of shows it's damages around this area.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, right? We don't know 100%, but kind of.
If there's like evidence of saliva or mucus or things of that nature, you would assume that obviously her airways would have had to pass through the blood, so it would have had to have been bleeding from the nose, mouth, or just above, and it was coming in through where she was breathing and just. But given her age and stuff like that, I think that it's more likely a cough looking straight down.
Yeah.
But um, if she was still in the car, so yeah, she could have been in the car uh, before that camera motion detects on the side of the house. That could be him already going out there and destroying cameras. And so if that's at 228 and he's not leaving there, I mean at 212, he's not leaving there until 228. That's a long time in the house after possibly. I mean, he could have definitely got it cleaned up to the point, and, you know, especially if he's only targeting the areas that he was at. Doesn't have to clean the entire house, just the areas that he was at.
I mean, I just think like, just from my experience, and I don't have a ton of experience or anything. I just, things that I do know is if a homicide unit was called in, I just think there's protocol. And, if they're opening up like, a case of items that they have to use to, go through a crime scene, I would think one of those items are, let's look for a cover up. And that would, make their memory or mind trigger, like, let's not forget this step. And I just think it would be standard procedure to check any crime scene for a cover up. And I know this was kind of a rushed thing from what we've seen. It would be hard for me to kind of believe that nobody ever saw signs of a cover up or even checked or sprayed, any agent to look for bleach or anything or smelled something. I mean, but we don't know because there's so much we don't know. But I understand what you're saying. I totally get it. There's such a long gap there. The 40 minutes is very, odd, but it's just, that would then to me show that even the homicide unit is missing a lot of steps here. And I hate to, I don't like to think that. And that's all. That's just my opinion.
Well, I don't think they're missing steps. They just haven't told us everything. I think that they're probably well aware of the lack of evidence that they have. And if you're looking at this case from, an investigative standpoint, the lack of evidence is evidence.
Right.
Right. You're expecting to find something there. Even if he's carrying her, and I don't know what kind of flooring she has, but if he's struggling with her, you should expect to find scuff marks of the shoes, things of that nature, from lifting up somebody or carrying somebody and having to struggle with that. A person carrying a person out is not easy. And that might be the reason why he propped up the doors. And if he did that, and he's utilizing tools that were there already, like a flower pot and stuff, that tells me that wasn't part of the plan. That was after the fact. So he wasn't really aware of her mobility issues. I think that he would have probably had a better plan if he did, to getting her out and not utilizing things. And I think that was a secondary thing. I think he may have gone in there, maybe he had bound her, maybe had taken, make sure that she didn't have access to her phone and stuff. And then at some point gone to, get the doors open because I think he felt that he was going to have to carry her out. And then it was too far and he changed the plan again and moved it to the front door.
Yeah. I definitely think I think something inside the home occurred to where there was a last minute change of plan. I really do. And that's why it happened outside the front door. And then, do you want to show the picture of how you think she was carried out the door?
Well, there is this picture. Let me pull it up here. Let me see, is it here that I put it? Now, I'm not. You had caught this. Is it on this one here? So there is, I guess, these trails that are pretty close together.
So you can see it's like There it looks like it's, I mean, some parts you can see it looks like there's two marks next to each other, but like looking at it wholly, it just looks like two very narrow tracks next to each other. But the other picture you showed right before that, you can see very closely there's 4 tracks there, very close together.
So it
And
looks like a wheelchair.
wheelchair or wagon. A wagon would have 4 tires and a wheelchair has 4 tires. So, I mean, either or, it's something that, and then if you look up further, like where that little light is, where the pavement, right there. Now, if you follow these, you can see a turn.
Yeah, I can see where it went like that.
Yeah. So it's coming from the bend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
So-
can see it there too. It's coming from the bend.
You can kind of
Right
see
there.
it there.
Yeah, it's coming from the bend. And then go back to the other picture.
You know what he did? I mean, possibly.
Okay, that one. Oh, but it shows in this one too. Okay, so right there, this is the other thing that I noticed. So those 2 red arrows, and then so the
But,
look.
if he had a wagon or if he had a wheelchair,
Mhm.
why not take it inside?
It's too bulky.
I mean, I would assume you can get a wheelchair in there.
You probably can, but that's adding stuff. That's adding noise, DNA, hitting stuff, the possibility of
Right. But I mean,
obscuring
if you got 40 minutes in there, right? And if you had an access to a wheelchair and you're struggling to move her around, and why not take it inside? It's not, it would help out tremendously. And I don't think she was in a wheelchair unless she tried to, get out of the wheelchair or she fell down, as she was being pushed out of the door. That could be it. I mean, because she, in my opinion, and I had Steve from True Crime Web, who's a former CSI investigator. He suspects that that she was fairly close to the ground. She was bleeding, and then she may have coughed or sneezed at some point, and that's where the mist looking spatter looks from. Unless maybe perhaps there was an accident there. But again, if you have the wheelchair in, why change your plans to go out the front door? Unless the wheelchair didn't fit out the back door.
Well, what my thought is, and I just want to remember the other day we were talking about this, or like the doors, and I think this is when we still thought there were the sliding doors, right? And we were
Mhm.
like, how is a door propped open if it's sliding doors and stuff like that? And then I showed you that picture of the sliding door with the remember
Yeah,
that?
I saw that.
And now we know that that's from the pool house, right?
Yeah.
So hold on, I just want to show over here. So we know that that's from the pool house, right? But what we do see is this comforter kind of, or like a blanket or something on the floor, and the door was left open.
Yeah.
So this is just something that ran across my mind. Like, what if, because again, we're kind of going with that the original plan kind of went south once Miss Nancy possibly expired, and now they have to think of, oh crap, plan B or plan C, and this is possibly why they had to go to the front door. What if they went into the pool house to look for a wagon or a wheelchair, and that's why all that happened, and they looked in there, and that's why there's a shuffle through that house or the pool home to look for the item to carry this dead weight of a body out now to the escape vehicle.
Right. I think it's possible. I'm starting to wonder if the intent was to go out the doors, that's why he propped it up. He had the wheelchair, but they couldn't fit through the door. Maybe the wheelchair, this door doesn't look like overly large, a back door. I'm assuming a wheelchair is not very big, that you would probably be able to get somebody out through there. But maybe there was some other obstruction in the way, and they
Mhm,
had, and the change of plans was that, and that they had to go out the front instead.
mhm.
And maybe perhaps if she is bound, which I think she is, there's no handprint, where she's lifting herself up, that she would have touched her mouth or nose, that she was bleeding and then gotten up. We would have seen that.
Twine.
If she fell and she has her hands tied, then there's a good chance she can hit her face.
Mhm.
And that could be why she's coughing or spitting up blood or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if he couldn't fit out the back, or it was too much of an obstacle. And so he just decided to scratch that and go out the front. And while going out the front, accident happens. She falls out.
Maybe, but I think the accident happened inside the home. I really do.
Oh,
And
I
that
don't disagree with you.
yeah, and I mean, maybe they had her, like, in a, in a, like, a headlock, and were dragging her out, and that's why that footprint looks like it's backwards, because they're dragging her out by, a
Mhm.
headlock, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And that's that spit, and that's kind of the dragging and her feet are dragging because she had no shoes, and her head maybe was off to the side, and that's that spit, but
Steve
again,
brings
we drag marks somewhere, and we don't, other than I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve makes a great point, saying we don't know what equipment was used to process the scene. We have bulky equipment in large wheeled containers. The wheel marks may be from CSIs. Good point. That could be because, like I said, I wonder why not? If a wheelchair can get out the back door like that, just out of any regular door inside of a house, um, why not follow through the original plan? Of just wheeling her out the back door, and why not wheel her out the front? If yeah, so
Well, and
I
that's
don't
why
know.
I brought up the pool house, because what other, like, alternative reason could it be that the pool house was gone through? If we know that, you know, what else could they have been looking for in there if we're already being told this was not a robbery, all this other stuff? So what are they looking for?
Well, law enforcement, they got to keep all possibilities open, especially early on. So they may have gone in there looking for things themselves, looking for clues, especially given the fact that there was a lack of clues. Maybe seeing if anybody stayed in there, somebody had hid in there, somebody had been waiting, in the back there. Um, Especially if they did that before the images from the the front doorbell camera was available, because Google had to do that, so it wasn't available to them right away.
Mhm.
And so what do they have when they walk up? They have the back doors propped open, so maybe perhaps they're like, all right, well, let's make sure that there's no stone unturned. We're going to look at the guest house, make sure that this guy wasn't like hiding in there, kind of waiting, hiding in wait in there,
Yeah.
and waiting for somebody to come in, and then sneak out from there. And if that ends up being the case, they would go in there and kind of process that scene. I would assume so.
I have another question. And this just goes with, if they spent that 40-minute or part of that 40 minutes cleaning up, then why did they stop at the front door?
Why didn't they clean up the front door? Well, maybe perhaps they didn't have, um, stuff to clean up the blood aspect. Maybe what they went back in there was just, a can of Lysol, kills all the germs or whatever, and just kind of sprayed
So what they were cleaning was just making the house look back kind of to normal?
to normal, and just kind of spray off anything, because I think that I struggle with the fact that they have any real DNA.
Mhm.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think they do. If they did, I don't think they'd be looking at this and saying this is going to take years. I don't think the possibility of years would even be brought up in a sentence.
And it's been said a lot by so many different people.
Yeah.
It's been said a lot. And yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. Like, it kind of it's worrisome. It really is. It's like, why are they putting such a long timeline on this and not giving at least some hope with, let's, we're getting somewhere. But no, they're like, yeah, it's going to take years. No one's safe. Lock your doors.
You're right. You're right. And like I said, they left things as is if this is the case, because this is the back door propped open still. And again, like it's more than just getting through the house. Now you're getting through the house, and then you have to get through the grass, go this long way around. Um, it's a significant walk to go through here, out through here, come across, and then out this way, versus out of her bedroom. I'm assuming there's a hallway and a living room area right here, and then the front door.
And from what I understand, it's like a step down, like it's like a drop down room. Like when you go out the front or into the front door, it's like a drop down into like.
Oh, even more so that if they had her in something that she could have fell down.
Well, I like the dynamics of the house. Like it's like a step down,
Yeah.
into, and then you got to go up like to more of a private area where her room is. And I'm not 100%, but this is how the house was explained to me on the living, what it's like when you go into her house. There's a step down.
Mhm.
So does that mean that there's like a area where she doesn't have to step down and can just walk along the edge and keep up to her room? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. And going back to this image here where you have the camera up here in the top, above this bush, you have this fence that I think anybody could jump. I think that's the reason why, if that picture that we were talking about earlier is not of the same night, it's because he was jumping a fence.
And not only can they jump that fence, look at the fence right in front of us with the holes. Like they could just stick their feet in there and just hop on over. Like, it's easy to get in there, very easy. And those do not trespass signs weren't even put up until the 24th or 25th of February. That's a good 3 weeks, over 3 weeks after this happened.
Yeah. James asks, your thoughts on engaging physics if there is no DNA, little evidence? Well, I just think that if the phone disc or the camera disconnects at 147, there's I guess footage of somebody walking around at 212. I doubt this guy's walking around smashing up the cameras before making entry and securing Nancy. And the reason being is if he's out there smashing up cameras or doing things to him or walking, doing all that stuff, somebody could hear him. And so my assumption is if they have motion, that's before the camera obviously was smashed up. So that's at 212. So the camera hadn't been mashed up yet. So my assumption is that he went in, secured Nancy, then went back out, smashed the cameras, and then probably maybe even cleaned up, because even at that, from 212 to 228, when Miss Guthrie's pacemaker disconnects from her phone, that's still a significant amount of time to go in there and do that. He said psychics, not physics. My bad.
I didn't even catch it. I read it as physics, so even when you said it, I was
my
thinking
bad. That's the dyslexia kicking in.
that's all right. I didn't catch it. My
What is
dyslexia
this
put it
psychics?
back into place.
Yeah. What do you mean by psychics? Your thoughts on engaging psychics if there's no DNA? Oh, engaging in psychics. Oh, I don't really believe in psychics. Do you?
I mean, not necessarily for things like this. There's a lot of people have mentioned it to me and said, why haven't they brought anybody in? And it's like, and they'll say, well, this person mentioned something, and guess what? That house down the street does have bars on the window and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, but how do we know that person didn't know about the bars in the window? And I can't confirm that. So therefore I can't spend my time on it because I don't know, right? I just don't know.
I don't.
It's hard to say. I stick with the facts, and I just have to, because what else? We have to, right? We don't have a lot of leads in this. They got right when this happened, they got over 40,000 leads in the case initially during that first week. And from my understanding, that's what the investigators and agents and law enforcement is spending their time on right now, still to go through all these 40,000 leads and tips. And, that's what I think is important, not what, and I don't mistrust psychics and what their profession is. I just don't think right now is the time to bring that in. Maybe in 6 months, I don't know, if the family chooses so, but right now I think it's too early for any outside things like that. What about you?
Nah, I don't believe in them. You know, if you were to go look back at my shows that I've done in this show, and instead of me breaking things down, and I said, you know what, guys, my crystal ball tells me that law enforcement doesn't have a picture of the vehicle. Law enforcement doesn't have any DNA in the house. The house was cleaned, and um, some of the other things that I said that you know now appear to be true. Does that make me psychic? No. I called that Brian Koberger was a fan of American Psycho, and that was a big influence on him. And that was before anything had occurred. Now, was it because I was psychic, or was it because I read his tap of talk and I read his thoughts on his feelings and thought, man, this is awfully very similar to what Patrick Bateman said in American Psycho. Then I go and start looking at the things
I
that he
remember
said.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then I start looking at things that that he has said to other people, like for instance, the whole birthing hips, conversation. I was like, you know what? That's from Johnny Depp in the movie Dark Shadow. It's like this guy he has no imagination, he has no authenticity. He is regurgitating what he sees and what he thinks is influencing him and what he relates to. I guarantee you this guy thought very highly of Patrick Bateman. He probably thought himself as Patrick Bateman. I see this picture of him with the headphones on. I guarantee you this guy probably has pictures of Patrick Bateman in his phone. And this was well before it came out and we found out that was the case. And I was able to deduce information and determine that I'm not psychic, but I was able to call that months before. And then sure enough, he has Patrick Bateman all over his phone. Just like I also called that he was on that he had Broadcastify. I even called it out that it was Broadcastify. Now I could have said, hey guys, my psychic, secret ball or whatever the case may be says that Brian Koberger downloaded the app Broadcastify and was listening to 911 calls shortly afterwards. What I did do is I explained why I thought that was the case. What I said was like, hey, we know that based on the PCA that Brian Koberger never went back to Moscow. We know that people that commit crimes like this, it is very difficult for them not to revisit the crime. So this guy had a lot of self-discipline. Yet the morning after the murders, that morning he goes back. Something gave him confidence to go back. Now, if he he couldn't search up, and initially that's what I thought it was he couldn't search up murders and he was wondering why it wasn't populating. Maybe he goes at that time. But the thing is, that's crime scene can be discovered at any point. And the moment that it's discovered doesn't mean that mainstream media or even local media is on the scene. And so, him going over there and it being a 9-mile trip or 9-minute trip, that scene could have been discovered at any point. There could have been police officers there. And I guarantee you that law enforcement went back and looked at the cameras and things of that nature, looking for vehicles that were returning to the scene, because it's a high probability that somebody's going to do that. Now, we know he never did.
Returning within every day. Trust me.
And so he never did. So that told me he had to have something that made him confident. So I looked it up. I was like, hey, is there a way that somebody can look up the 911 calls? And I found out that Broadcastify at the time was airing out Whitcomb 911 dispatch, and Whitcomb 911 dispatch was the dispatch for Pullman and Moscow. And so I was like, well, there it is. This guy felt comfortable. And now I then was able to deduce that what ended up getting him somewhat caught, because it didn't get him caught, but what ended up kind of nailing it, putting the nail in his coffin, was the fact that he turned his phone on. Right now, I don't think he turns his phone on if Dylan doesn't see him. And so Dylan sees him seeing Dylan. He knows that somebody saw him in the house, probably assumes that they heard what happened and they're calling 911. And curiosity does kill the cat in that moment. And he turns his phone on to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And is dumbfounded that it doesn't happen. But, I was able to predict all of that with a fair amount of accuracy. I mean, almost everything in the Brian Koberger case. If you guys haven't seen my work on it, please go back and watch. I even did a video where what I got right and what I got wrong, and I called almost every single thing, and it had nothing to do with being psychic. It had everything to do with being able to pick up on certain details and putting a lot of information together at one point or at one time. And so when it comes to psychics, I think they just have that same ability. The only difference is they don't break it down like I do, and they say, ooh, this is what happened. That's all it is, my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying, and I think some people have intuition and gut feelings, and I think they work on that, and I think sometimes it's intuition. I think people like you and I run with intuition, and that's a skill, and we work on what we're feeling and stuff like that, and I think that plays a role in this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. To me, I think it's when you look at what law enforcement is doing, that's also going to give you a lot of key details. I was able to determine how much information or the lack thereof information they have based on what law enforcement were doing here. The fact that they were going back talking to construction workers and things, or looking at construction workers, looking at houses after they'd already um, detained two people, told me they were starting over at square one, and they completely struck out on everything that they had up to that point, and they have nothing much.
Do you want me to say what I do know about that? Or were
What
you
do
gonna-
you know? Yeah, go ahead. I don't know. What do you know?
They are revisiting satellite imagery from the beginning days, and something that they're doing in the last couple of days. And again, I heard this from a very prominent journalist, is that they are contacting HVAC contractors and workers in the area, and specifically HVAC workers and contractors, dates and times that they were contracted to work on, orders for the neighborhood, who showed up, something I said the other day, who actually showed up, who was scheduled to work, who left early, stuff like that. And they're pulling all of those records, but for whatever reason, it's HVAC right now. I don't know the correlation. I really don't.
Interesting.
And they're pulling work orders too, which I don't know the
Well,
correlation.
I mean, that just kind of tells you, like I said, you start off with what you think is the most likely, and what evidence that you do have pointing you in that direction. But as those things, start to dwindle down, or as evidence comes out, and I think it's unfair for like some of these family members who have been cleared, that evidence doesn't come out on how they got cleared, because people could still speculate into stuff because they don't know. But um to me, I just think that just watching them, man, they don't have much. They don't got much. They're waiting on an act of God at this point. Somebody to say something, somebody to come up with something, maybe perhaps him to do something.
Somebody said HVAC would be due to the bite light. I don't understand that. Do you?
I don't know.
I don't get the correlation of that. So the other thing that was brought up was, a really good, interesting thing that Banfield brought up was if they are perhaps reaching out to all of their CIs in the, in the department, and kind of saying, hey, let's work together again, or what do you guys hear? Let's come up with some agreement, or look at the money that you guys can get, what it can do for your families, this and that, like kind of, making it seem like it's such
You know what that means?
wonderful thing. They don't got anything.
No, not necessarily, but that means to me that they really do think that the person is local, and that the person probably has a history of burglary. And so that's why they're talking to people that know people that are in that. And so, TMZ was contacted, and one interesting point that was made was there is an Arizona-based TMZ.
Interesting.
And that maybe perhaps, because there was local law enforcement that was contacted, maybe perhaps Hollywood TMZ was contacted by accident, and it was supposed to be Arizona. Keeping it local. I mean, that would go to also the fact that if the whole ransom stuff was real, if it was real, still not sold on that, but if it was, that the person was local, and you have the bite thing. This isn't the first time this guy breaks into a house. I don't know if this is the first time he takes somebody with him. That's a question, but I don't think this is the first time this guy breaks into somebody's house. Whether it be a peep and Tom, whether it be a burglar, whether it be a number of other reasons. And so I think it'd be very smart to ask burglars, what do they know?
Yeah. And and this was just something that she asked. She had on a gentleman that used to work with Pima County Sheriff's Department, he was part of the department at some point, and she asked him, what does he think of this, idea, and if that's something that could be happening. And he said he does not think that this is happening. He said that's something that is more a TV kind of theory, that this isn't real life. That's more of something that you would see in TV. And Ashley was like, whoa, like, I don't think you understand who I am. Like, I work with Dan Abrams on the Patrol Live, and they utilize things like this. And this is every day that they utilize their CIs for cases as well. And he kind of was like, all right, well, I mean, I personally, I don't think that that's something that is happening right now, but all right. And he kind of backed off, but I thought it was very interesting. And why not? Again, why not? Look for everything, uncover everything, turn every stone over. But we're right back to why they keep turning everything away, and why not every, avenue is walked, or looked down or used, or any of this.
So Steve says AC handlers and in basements, attics, sometimes hands-free lightning. So do internet and satellite technicians.
That's very true, yeah.
Anybody that works in basements, attics, crawl spaces, I would assume that this person, to have gotten away with this, is probably of above average intelligence to have gotten away with this up to this point. So I can see a profession, requiring some intelligence, AC handler, AC units, things of that nature. The direct TV and internet guys, those are tech dudes. They may know how to, jam some video surveillances.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The only other time I ever heard about the jammers was the Sebastian Rogers case. So for me, it was very surprising for, another case 2 years down, 2 years later, literally in the same month, because Sebastian Rogers happened on February 25th. This happens the last day he was seen was February 25th, reported missing February 26th, but same month, 2 years later, and they're using jammers as well. I don't know. It's just, if you're using a jammer, why doesn't it jam all the cameras and leaves one unjammed? That's the only thing I can't.
Well, it's because he wants to leave one unjammed. I'm not of the aspect that everything is absolute, that it's all one way or all other ways, that either he wanted to be seen on all cameras or not seen at all. I believe that two things can be right at the same time. I believe that he wanted to be seen at one point and then not anymore.
Yeah.
I think that those two things can exist. You mentioned this being generational and stuff. I think people need to maybe perhaps go look at, maybe, I don't know if there's any door knockers in there in the area that install internet or computer stuff. I would think that maybe perhaps somebody could be in the area, go door knocking. And did you notice anything like that?
There is. So in the beginning, and I have my other phone up recording, so I can't pull it. But in the beginning, before I was there was a local woman that lives right in the neighborhood, and this was during one of Brian Enton's live streams, and he was walking right up to he was walking in on Nancy Street up to intersection, right where one of her stop signs are, and a local pulled up in her vehicle, and she was asking him, have you seen where the police officers went? I have something to report. And he was like, well, you can tell me, I mean, if you're comfortable with it. So it's all recorded on his live. And she says, I live over here and I have things I want to show them on my phone. And she's talking about that right before, like in the months before this, a couple months before this, they had like a variety of people, door knockers, coming to sell products, like window cleaning, window installation, internet, all random stuff. And it just seemed she felt like it was, it didn't sit well with her because it's not happened in the past. And she was like, and for whatever reason, I recorded this. And now for this to happen, I really think that they need to see this, because it seemed very abnormal for us, because I've lived here for so long, and now this happened. So I think they need to see this. And he kept, he was kind of, prodding, like, well, you can show me right now. And then she was like, well, I don't think so. And so video went dark very fast, but I don't know what ended up happening from it, but it was 100% on his live. And I may have even recorded it, but she did say that there were door knockers in, I believe, November and December, she said.
Yeah, because door knockers can be younger, gives them access to area information too. Like if they're like utility door knockers for like solar and solar systems and internet and like satellite or even like spectrum and things of that nature. You have some tech savvy guys. If they're internet guys, they may have some information on how to jam and Wi-Fi and all that other stuff. If they're guys that install security cameras, or a person that could install that. I mean, I'm curious because I know that Arizona does have a lot of door knockers out there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Pima County, from when I was watching the podcast today, Pima County, they said, is the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut state put together. That's how large this county is. So imagine, like, for a company that has a bunch of salespeople that just signed up and they're like, we're gonna make you rich. Look at this area that you're gonna get to go and sell to. And this is an untouched, territory that is all yours. I mean, it's a salesperson's paradise, right? Like things like that. I really believe so. And especially knowing the unhoused community that's right, literally 2-3 miles down the road from the Catalina foothills. It's right there. It's just, she lives in a very nice area, but right outside of it is a city. There's a lot of unfortunate people that are struggling and need help, and that's right outside her door.
Mm-hmm. A lot of possibilities, a lot of thoughts. Well, we're hitting into is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we call it?
Well, I just wanted to say that also in the podcast, it was brought up budget. The budgets were brought up and why they're turning down the people, wanting to help. We've mentioned the searchers from Mexico and obviously United Cajun Navy, and it was brought up again today. And it was brought up that, budgets, they're restricted by budgets. But again, we have to remember that they were told that their resources are unlimited to them. So it doesn't work for that. So I told you about looking at the HVAC, the back gate, the floodlight, really the pilot. That's it. I think we did it.
I think we covered it all. There was a lot. And I think that in the end, I'm more concerned about this case and the direction that it's going after everything. I would really start bridging that gap on, were there people knocking doors in that area and looking in that direction? Did Nancy have somebody install anything on her house recently or in the last 6 months?
Right. And I think they looked into that and tried to get the DNA from all those people. But there was, like, while I was there was, neighbors and family members of neighbors that lived there coming out and stuff like that. And there was one interview that really stuck out to me, and it was of a mother and a daughter. And they said that for people that don't know that area and are unfamiliar with just even Tucson in general, and especially that part north, that north area of it, to go there after 10 p.m. and to feel comfortable between 10 p.m. and let's say 4 a.m. to walk the roads and to walk even the Catalina foothills in the dead of the night is very telling of what happened here. You had to have confidence. You had to have some sort of outline. You had to know exactly where you were going. And I can attest to that because, again, I've said it before, I was there at night. I couldn't even see my hand in front of me. When I would drive home, I'd be shaking, like trembling, because I was so scared just driving down the road in that area with my high beams on in a big Tundra truck, brand new. Like, I was safe in the vehicle, but I was still petrified because you can't see anything no matter what. I don't know if I would need like those floodlights on outside of my car or what, but I couldn't see anything. And I can't imagine just having a little tiny light in my mouth that would have helped me feel secure. I really don't, unless I was very familiar. I don't know.
You see, that's the other thing too. He had a light in his mouth, was moving that around. Still no DNA from the guy that, again, the processing of the scene didn't look the greatest. And so there may have been DNA to be found and they just didn't find it because it was processed bad. But, with what you're saying, a person that has, a door knocker in the area would be familiar with the area, having to walk it so many times.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And that's part of their job. I mean, where I live, that, I have people coming all the time because, you know how it is with the roofs over here. Every time there's a tornado or a storm, they want to replace your roof. And, so they're constantly coming and they want to know everything. They're like, oh, well, Bobby down the street, he just replaced his. And he, if you do yours at the same time as Bobby, you're friends with Bobby, we'll give you a better deal. And then they'll say, well, they got a dog that looks just like yours. Joanne behind you over here and Joanna over here and Johnny over there. Like they tell you what they know. And that's their job, is to kind of personalize their sale to you because you want to feel comfortable with them. That's the job of a salesperson, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, I love this guy. Come on in. Come in. You must know everybody over here. You want some water? Let me get you some iced tea, And now this person's in your house and they're looking around. They're like, all right, there's a camera here. There's a door there. There's this there. We don't know, but that's their job.
Yeah, definitely is. Interesting stuff. A lot to think about. I'm going to have to really ponder this a little bit more about the information that we have. Hopefully we get some more info and hopefully the case gets solved. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, you can find me on TikTok at Crime Scene Collective. You can find me on YouTube, Crime Scene Collective. Please like and subscribe. I really want to get my YouTube channel built and I need subscribers to get there. We have a website, crimescenecollective.org. And in Facebook, I have a group for this Nancy case. Look for the wolf with the yellow moon, orange moon. It's Nancy Guthrie's missing, Savannah Guthrie's mom, case discussion. And and that's where you can find me right here on your channel.
It was good to have you. And guys, for those that are watching on X or on Elena's channels, on her TikTok, I also have TikTok, Drunk Turkey Daniel or Drunk Turkey Dan, I think is what it's called. Go find me there. If you guys are looking for my Pokemon channel that I have hidden, there's some clues there that if you go scoop around my TikTok, you might find. And so we're still looking for somebody to found that. I think I'm up to like 40 something subscribers. So I've gotten some more subscribers on there on YouTube. So if you find it, once you guys find it, I'll probably tell you guys what it is and where it's at. And hopefully you guys will go and like, comment, and subscribe to get me going. I'd appreciate that. But I'm waiting for somebody to find me. But yeah, you can go find me there. Find me on X. Find me here on VT Show or the Drunk Turkey Show. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. All our mods that were in tonight, you guys did an amazing job as always. Yeah, and then our members as well. All righty, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. I'll be back probably tomorrow because I think Thursday night I'm not going to be doing a show, so I'm going to try to do one tomorrow and Friday. So without further ado, I'm out of here, guys. See y'all then. Peace out. Bye.
Good night.